You know, diversity is such a great concept. Everybody's welcome in the sandbox, right? But what happens when that idea becomes forced and condescending? And what happens when those you're condescending to and about get sick of your crap and call you on it? Well, that's the hook behind American Fiction, the newest movie by Cordjefferson based on the novel Erasure by Percivaleverett. In American Fiction, we meet black author Thelonious Monk Ellison, teaching a college course on Old Southern literature and getting white-splained by overprivileged liberal arts students that the material is offensive to black people. He's a bit on edge because he hasn't sold a book in a while because all the publishers want a black book. And in spite of his melanin, he's not black enough. Well, what they really mean is they want cliched stories about black people selling drugs and being shot by cops and overcoming adversity. Monk gets so fed up with this reductive racist crap that he sits down and ghostwrites My Pathology, spelled with an F, a ridiculously over-the-top parody of the worst types of black literature as he sees it. He wants to rub their so-called diversity in their smug little faces in the hopes it'll open up some eyes. And then they offer him $750,000 for the rights. And the more he doubles down on the racist stereotypes to sour the deal, the more money they throw at him. He refuses to meet with them in person, claiming he's a wanted felon. They call him brave. When he changes the name of the book to a swear word and skips out on a producer's meeting, they offer him $4 million for the film rights. And while his need for the money is battling with his integrity, multiple tragedies strike his family, piling on the inner turmoil. You know, in the wrong hands, a movie like this could get tiresome and forced really quickly. But what saves it is the incredibly savvy writing and acting. Most of the characters in the movie feel like real people. We meet them as fully formed individuals with pasts and personalities that don't have to be explained to the audience because it just comes through so naturally as they interact. There's no weepy, melodramatic coming out scene for Monk's gay brother. They already know he's gay. They're fine with it. When Monk's mother is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you see how it affects the family, but then they have to get down to the business of helping her rather than weeping and gnashing of teeth. Monk's romantic subplot? Genuine and reserved instead of saccharine. Well, nothing is overly melodramatic because that's not how real people would deal with the situations presented. This is just life, and you get to watch them try and deal with it the best they can. And they happen to be black. And regardless of race, everyone can connect with these guys because the focus isn't on their blackness, but on their humanity. They are black, and unashamedly so, but that doesn't mean they have to act or talk a certain way to prove their blackness. They're individuals, human beings. They're not a checklist that has to meet your preconceptions of a whole race, which is a message the movie succeeds in getting across, even to its own characters. Jeffrey Wright's Monk is bitter and combative, even turning allies into enemies by his own self-righteous distance. His problem is that he's just as guilty of reducing people down to his expectations as the people he's pissed at. He fails to see that not everyone has had his opportunities, and he lords his privilege and intelligence over those he sees as lesser, which is really driven home in a scene where he confronts issarae's Sinatra Golden about her own book, and she points out that not everyone has had the same black experience he has, and maybe he should get off his high horse. My favorite moment in the film, though, is when Monk reads his sister's letter. It's heartbreaking and funny, and gives an insight into the woman who wrote it in a way that was so well delivered. I was sobbing and laughing at the same time. Watching her family hear those words and struggle through the complexities of their feelings, it made me feel like I was a part of their family, if only for a moment. Because they're not just characters, they're people. And I guess that's the real message of the movie. In spite of the fact that it's hilarious in all the right ways, American Fiction is about the need to stop putting people in boxes, to stop viewing them through your own lens and expectations, and just let people be people. We should listen to people instead of shouting them down because we think we know better, which is also showed in a number of wonderfully ironic scenes, like when 3 white people are telling 2 black authors to basically sit down and shut up because black voices need to be heard. See the irony? Because I've seen it happen in real life. I mean, come on, how many times have we seen that played out in real time? The number of liberal guilt white knights I've seen telling black media creators and film critics to stop hating their own kind because they didn't like a particular movie or tried to start their own comic book franchise that wasn't black enough is ridiculous. I've seen a ton of black authors, musicians, filmmakers, and content creators pointing out that their voices aren't being heard and their stories aren't being told. That they're supposed to say, well, thank you ever so much, and smile because, what, Ariel was melanin swapped? As if getting Bob Iger's table scraps was good enough. See, these people in Hollywood want a merit badge for supporting diversity, but they only want the kind of diversity that fits their narrow and frankly racist worldview. Diversity is an amazing thing, but forced diversity without respect for the people involved, especially when it's done so some people can pat themselves on the back while using people of color to shield their money, that's just wrong. They're not listening to the people they pretend to champion. And this is a time when we need to listen, because even though I may not be the guy you should listen to about diversity, Percivaleverett and Cordjefferson definitely are. The ironic thing about this movie is that it'll probably get nominated for a bunch of Oscars, and it should. But the sad thing is that because of the diversity requirements in the Oscars right now, it'll never be clear if it got nominated because it's an amazing movie or because a bunch of rich white folks wanted to make themselves feel better, which is the exact kind of pandering crap this movie is calling out. Meanwhile, American Fiction is an amazingly clever, astoundingly well-acted film that truly has a voice of its own. If Hollywood was really interested in putting forward more black voices, they'd be greenlighting more movies like this instead of only letting the broad comedies or lazy swap-outs through and counting their money while the actors take the heat. But then again, maybe I'm just guilty of Monk's anti-consumerist argument from the film. But what do you guys think? Did you see American Fiction? Is it a sounding bell for change or pretentious nonsense? Let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more reviews, like, subscribe, and until next time, happy viewing!